Okay. So same thing as the last ones. We'll go up and screen share. What was your level 14 assignment? Remind me, because I've
It
been at
was
it all day.
actually just a critique of images.
That's really
So
boring compared to the rest of
yeah,
the cohort.
I
Make it
guess that's
good.
what I
Show
get
me
for being
something exciting.
first.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
so I think one thing to preface this is in comparison to my previous critiques, these are not images created for clients. So these
okay.
are fine art images, not retail portraiture, which
Awesome.
does affect the way they're understood.
Okay. So
So
why
let
are you
me
doing these? Just for you?
um no, I've kind of come to the realization through working through the ideas that I had and working with clients that I'd actually prefer to not work with clients. They're very demanding, and
Okay.
it's just ultimately speaking more of a headache than I really want to have trying to deal with constant reschedulings and emails back and forth and questions that have been answered but have to be answered again and again and again. And I'm kind of tired of that. So
Okay. I can relate to the not wanting to work with clients. I don't mind the conversation with them, but I like being able to create for myself. That's really what the Reliquarian's all about. So,
sure. Yeah,
yeah.
that's kind of through the course of photography. It's always been, or I guess it's been a process of trying to come closer and closer to what it is that is in my head, and I've just realized that it's not clients that I'm trying to document for or make images. It's that I've got something to say about the world, damn it, and photography is the medium I'm going to use to do it. So
Okay.
that's uh that's why the change. So let's see if I can find the screen share button.
So is the idea for these images then to be saleable as fine art prints? Is that the direction we're going?
That is the direction I'm going.
How
Some of
much?
these images are not necessarily images that would be in a portfolio or a gallery, but are studies.
Mm,
Why is this? I guess actually one of them is a study.
okay.
Just attempts. Okay. So I am screen sharing. So this is the first image.
Okay. Tell me
It is
about it.
called Limitations. And, I'm actually of the opinion that if you were to encounter this in the world or in a gallery, you wouldn't have me here to tell you about it. You would just have the title. So, with the title of Limitations, this is the image.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about what you're doing with these images and the direction you're going then. What are you looking to do now? What's your concept with creating the art?
Okay, well, for that, I think the best thing to do would be to pull up my website, and that's my computer really does not like being on a Hangout.
Yeah, I hear you.
Go.
So,
Or
thinking about where we thought you were going with Sphere One and where you're sort of venturing off to, and I'm all about picking different paths. How much does that nullify most of your Sphere One for you?
not all that much, to be honest.
Okay, good. Good to hear.
The money levels change a little. Yeah, the money, the discussions of money and pricing change a little bit, but other than that, pretty much everything stays the same.
Okay.
Okay, so this is sort of the artist statement that applies to me. These aren't necessarily a collection that would have its own statement. In
Okay.
fact, they're not a collection, but everywhere we look, we see boundaries, limits based on lies spoken to us and lies we tell ourselves. We must cross these boundaries. We must live fully, without compromise or apology. When creating images, we are facing our limits and surpassing them. We constantly strive to be better, and each portrait is a marker along the way, showing how far we've come.
I like it. Now, is this just the descriptor with your with this specific photograph, or is that like your artist statement and about me, or both?
That in an artist statement and an about me.
Okay. Have you considered maybe sharing your thoughts in writing alongside your imagery? Because you're very articulate.
Thank you. It's something that I've considered. I have done similar things in the past with poetry, actually mixing poetry and sort of essays. My thoughts for the blog on my website are actually something along those lines to use the art pieces to illustrate concepts or ideas I want to talk about and explore.
Okay. Nice. I appreciate it. Okay. Well, let's go over the images for just the sake of artistic merit then, and we'll kind of go through them, and then we'll talk some more about the new direction that you're going in. Sound good?
Okay.
Okay. So, for this one specifically, and you know, you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt because it gets compressed when you upload it, and then there's different viewing screens. But for me, it's a little dark.
Sure.
And I'm losing a lot of the fabric of like her skirt into the background that she's on. Which I don't mind the feeling of sort of dissolving in, but it's not enough that it looks like it was intentional. It just looks like we just didn't separate her enough from the background. I like the idea of her being bound. Um, but I also think that you have to be very, very careful playing with that connotation if you're also introducing nudity, because it's very easy to take it, and for a lot of people that will take it to sexual realms and BDSM and all that kind of stuff. So you just have to be careful about what the message is that you want and that it's not getting lost in translation with other people.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
I love I love the idea and the styling of it, and that you're brave with the expression of it. And that her pose is very uh defeated, which I think is really good. And you follow one of my rules, which is you have the model look wherever you want the viewer to pay attention. So because her eyes are cast down, my eyes immediately go to her breasts, which is, you know, essentially the entire focus of the image. That's really good. The one little curl in front of her face is bothering me just a little because she has such thick curls, that from far away, it's like this black bar that cuts into her face. So I might be, and unfortunately, there really isn't too much that you can do with it. I'd actually be curious to see this one cropped in a little closer, because I think the focus is on her hands being bound, and I think that you could probably crop it into like maybe knees or like mid thigh and make her a little more of the focus, and we would probably lose a little bit of the feeling of her getting lost into the background of it too that way.
Yeah, I think there's kind of two things in response to that. One is
Okay.
some of that is the darkness issue is due to the monitor. In print, the distinction
Right.
will come through a lot more clearly. Second, of course, is the size. You know, on a monitor, we're looking at something very, very small. This is
Right.
intended to be something like 20 by 30, so it's a very different, I think, experience than judging something
Absolutely.
that's almost like a thumbnail here.
Absolutely. I feel that way. Some of my very favorite images just they suck as online representations, because there's so much information that gets lost in translation. Uh,
Yeah.
my only my only conversation to that point in conflict is the question of how is most of the people that come into contact with your work viewing it, because it's great for people to have a print and it's great to have like a gallery show, but if 95% of your people are experiencing you or being introduced to you through online mediums, that's definitely something that we have to just keep in the forefront of our mind and consider. And for some of the images that I've done, I have cropped them in closer for the digital or provided double images so that people can appreciate the up close and then see far away and know that that information's there. So just food for thought.
Sure. No, those are very good points to consider there.
So I'm going to give you a 2 for this one. I do like it. I love the concept. The thing I think that's bothering me most is that I think with the dark background and with the skirt and the line of it, it just amputates her upper body because her skin tones are so bright and warm in comparison that it just kind of cuts her off right under the rib cage. And I think it's a little bit too stark of a separation for me visually. This may work better as a black and white, honestly. I'd be interested to see it that way. But I do like the direction that you went with it, so I'm gonna give it a 2.
Okay. From the same session, though it would not be necessarily paired with the first one at all.
Okay.
This one is titled Rising Tide.
Okay. And I saw this one in the group and I loved it. That one curl is making me crazy though. I think in the future, having it pinned just a little bit back, and I feel her because my hair does the same thing.
It was intentional.
Okay. It's not working. The problem is that if you look towards the back of her hair, we're getting sort of more auburn kind of colors in the highlights, and this one curl in the front is so thick and heavy that it's just black. So it actually looks out of place from the rest of her hair because it's separated from the direction the rest of the hair is falling. But it is entirely probable, too, that this is just a me thing and a pet peeve that I'm having with it that nobody else will notice or critique you on. So take it with a grain of salt.
And some of it would absolutely be the way it's presented online.
Yeah.
Viewed larger, there's a lot more definition there.
Yeah.
I can totally. That's at least a little bit of it.
That said, I am really impressed with your ability to get all of the tonality and all of the texture and all of the detail of everything, because she's really fair skinned. So especially along like the décolletage and the line of her cleavage, you're having some really high highlights, and you did really well at not blowing any of them out, but also not losing almost any of the definition of the fabric and the hair and the shadows. And that's really tough to have that wide of a range without losing any in either category. I love the implied nudity of it and that we didn't do the hand bra, because that's a pet peeve of mine that everybody wants to do.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, so it's difficult sometimes to remind models that they don't have to have their hands and their arms against their skin in order to, keep it implied or PG-13. And you did that here. Her right arm, left. Her left arm stretched out in front. I think it's just a little bit unintentional. Like it's just kind of resting there. So she has this sort of relaxed kind of feel that I think, with a rising tide, I would have liked to have seen her come up a little bit more powerfully towards it. And same thing with her face. I love that she is looking up, but I would like to see a little more intention and strength in her face and her expression and her energy. She looks bored to me right now. Like, are we done yet?
Okay.
So, and that's not entirely something that you can control, because I've had really difficult models that I have really had to work with to get that. So it just depends on the chemistry that you have with them and how comfortable they are in front of the camera. But for me, I think that this had the potential to be really, really beautiful and powerful. And I feel like the energy from her is what's lacking from it. And some of that is the way that she's sitting and the fact that her shoulders are kind of rounded and she just looks like she's resting instead of moving and holding herself with purpose.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you 2 for this one as well, because I really like the concepts and you're doing really well with them. There's just this little push I want to see them have that I know you're capable of because I've seen it in other images of yours.
Okay, fair enough. So this third image is a study.
Okay.
It's a figure and chain. I have a shoot coming up where I'll be doing similar lighting to this. So I was at another shoot, and I took advantage of that and this model to kind of start to study some of the ways of getting the light and the lighting on the subject just the way I wanted. So
Did you accomplish that here?
yes,
Okay. Um, I I've really loved this one. This is one of my favorite images I've seen from you. The only thing that I find distracting or that I don't like is that off to the edge of the print, the light coming in sort of turns purple and you have that like that light flare, that sun flare. I think that's a little distracting. I'd be inclined to go in and edit that out so that the light and the highlight is all on her figure. But I love the texture and the sharpness of the chains and the shadows that's leaving on her body. And I love that we still have some texture in her skin too, but that it's subtle. I think this is a really gorgeous image. This is a fine art print that I would see in a gallery.
oh, thank you.
I think it's really well done.
Okay,
There's a little bit of banding for me, but again, that may be computer related and distortion because we're looking at it uploaded online and then screen shared. Um, so just pay attention to that and see how that works and if you're getting that in the prints as well. But overall, this is a 3 for me, hands down.
okay. Yeah, the original definitely doesn't have the banding.
Mm,
This is straight out of camera. There's no manipulation. Everything had a nice smooth gradient, so that's definitely the hangout.
now, did you
Which
shoot this with blue gels? Is this like literally out of camera? You didn't do anything to it?
this is well, the only thing I did was crop it, and this was blue gelled. I don't intend to be using a blue gel with the shoot. With the shoot I'll be doing, I have a little bit of a more complicated setup. But in this particular case, the light was gelled blue. The model was actually painted, but you, that doesn't matter so much with the strong
Right.
toning of the light. But yeah,
I
this is
really love
otherwise
this one. I would say out of every image you've brought to critique from level 4 on up, this is probably my favorite thing that I've seen from you.
okay. Well, I like the sound of that. So
Mm.
hopefully the actual shoot will be as interesting.
Yeah.
So this one is titled Engulf.
Okay. Um, I love the idea of this one too. Is that just it's just fabric with motion?
Yes.
Okay. Um, I really like this one. I'm not particularly fond of being able to see her legs. I think there's so much motion in the fabric that it kind of distorts it a little bit. It's just I don't know. I don't know why it's bothering me, but her legs are bothering me because I think it makes her look sort of stumpy. I don't know what the adjective is that I'm looking for. But
Okay.
I love the motion of her fingertips and her hand and the delicacy there. And I like that she's anonymous and could be anyone. And I love the flow of the fabric, but that you still got her super tack sharp, in spite of all of the motion from the slower shutter speed. That's really hard to do. Um, and I think it's fabulous in black and white. I think part of it too is because her legs are actually a darker tonality than the flesh tone of like the back of her shoulders and her hand. So that may be part of why it's sticking out so hard. I'd like to see it just kind of fade, I think, at the bottom. This is another one that's a really beautiful fine art image, and I think that this one's very sellable as well. So
Okay.
I'm gonna give this one a 3, but I want to give it a 2 because your other one blew me away, and I feel like it's not quite on par, but it's really close.
So we're just sneaking by with a 3. I can take
Yeah.
that. Okay, and then the last one, which again is from the same session as the previous one, but they're not necessarily related in the sense that they would be paired together. But this
Mhm.
one's titled Victory.
I really love this one too. I would have liked to have seen, you're almost there. I would have liked to have seen the pose really, really exaggerated with her head back a little further and her arms way far away from her body. Because I think that would have changed the front angle and the line of her a little bit more. And I think it would have been a little bit stronger if we had just pulled the top of the fabric down just a little bit off her neck and let it sit more along the line of her collarbone. But I love the energy of the fabric and how small she is in comparison to all the negative space around her, but how she's still powerful in it. Fits the title very well. And this is another one that I think is very sellable too. I really, really love the new direction that you're going in. I think you finally hit the core of your artistic voice, like with a vengeance too. So 3 for this one as well.
Thank you. It's been a struggle the past few months. I mean, as we briefly talked a few weeks ago, I kind of dropped out of everything and really just dug into a lot of history and art history, and I was like really struggling with myself to figure out how to express what I wanted to express. And I think I'm very proud of all of these images. I know that there are certainly a couple of tweaks that could probably be done, but I I think that they're much closer to what I want to say than any of the boudoir work was.
Yeah, I agree. I totally see a different voice with you. Okay, so you can turn off this screen share then, and let's talk about this new direction you're going in and what you're going to do with these incredible new images.
Okay, I just missed what you said.
Oh, I said, well, I told you to turn off the screen share. And let's have a conversation about where you want to go now that you're in this new direction with your art, because these images are so, it's a totally different artist from 4 and 9 critique levels.
Yeah, I think there's really two things I want to do. One is, well, I guess there's actually three things I want to do.
Okay.
One, which is the far future goal, is to have work in a museum. The more near goals are to put together not just a gallery of images, but a portfolio to take to galleries and start shopping around. I think that uh, right now these are a little too disparate to serve as a single collection. So I have to figure out which set to go with first and start really intentionally building that out to a good 10 or 15 pieces, and then start shopping that around and see about some shows. And then the other thing is to do private commissions.
Okay. Did you happen to watch Lars' most recent critique with me where we went through all the images for his gallery show and broke down what makes a good collection?
Yes.
Yeah. I would think your level 19 critique, I think that would be a really excellent thing to sit down and go through with you. And I'm gonna have to look and see what I told you to do for 19, but I'm the boss, so I can amend it. So that's what I'm doing. I'd like to see a full collection from you in this new style, but Tom, like I cannot accurately express how happy it makes me to see this work from you. Like your voice is so strong in it and it's so powerful and potent compared to what you were doing. And you're talented as a boudoir photographer. Like you're very skilled in that and you were bringing beautiful images, but this work just it just blows me away comparatively with what you have to say. And I know that you struggled for it and that you've been going through some things. And if it takes, if it takes the kind of mental anguish and heartache that you've been kind of, mudding through to get to here, then I'm fine with you continuing to suffer.
I think my wife would say the same thing, although she'd be happy to be sitting there with the whip and making me suffer for it.
As a good wife should.
Yeah.
Um, so I love it. Galleries and commissions. Let's talk a little bit about that. What do you want to be hired for? Do you want to be commissioned to create art with certain people, or Um,
Yes. Yes.
okay.
Ultimately speaking, what my thought is for the because I don't. Well, with the exception of the study, none of these images were done with models. They were real people I know who very graciously were willing to come in and collaborate in this experience. And that's really what I want to do. I don't have a lot of interest in shooting models because I think that the act of modeling is itself a facade. And
Mm.
part of what I want to explore in my work is actually getting rid of those facades
Hmm.
and stepping beyond that. So using a model somewhat plays against that. So there's some dichotomies there. But what I ideally want to do is for the women who would want something like this, but wouldn't necessarily want to have their work shown publicly, to be able to offer them a private commission where they would be the only ones to get the work who would see it.
Okay, that sounds good. Have you considered maybe stepping away from the traditional portraiture idea where they're getting a collection of images and maybe just creating single fine art images? Like, I'm going to create a fine art piece and it's going to be 1 to 3 images, and you will come and pay for the experience of having that.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Good, good. I'm glad to see us in line. So what do you think, what do you think you need for that? You're at level 14, you have 4 or 5 more levels. What's next for you? What are you doing right now?
Well, right now I'm still scheduling and putting together some more shoots just to be able to build up enough of a portfolio to have it on the website and say this is what I do, even if it's not enough, even if it's not cohesive enough to take to a gallery.
Hmm.
So that's just one thing, is just creating an initial body of work that I can then get more in depth on. But in the meantime, then still be able to have a sellable product. Because and right now, the last 2 images I showed, the black and white ones, are the only ones that are on my website, and they're only in a blog post because they don't
Right.
fit with a boudoir portfolio. So until I have enough that I can create a portfolio for, it's not something that I feel I can really put out there and say, hey, you don't have any idea what you're getting, but come give me a pretty good bit of money to do it. So that's kind of step number one for me, is just continuing to do these shoots and get that 8 to 12 images to the point where I'd be comfortable saying to someone, okay, now you can give me money to do this.
Right.
Um, so that's
Um,
that's kind of step one for me.
well, keep in mind too, it's quality, not quantity now. Like, you're doing fine art commissions, so is 2 images very few? Yes, I would be inclined to put just one up if I was going to do that with my prices rather than two, because two looks like you don't have work. One looks like you're a moody artist that has something to say, you know?
Well, there's something to that. Lisa Evans in California doesn't even. Well, she has one picture on a website, and there's like absolutely nothing else because she doesn't want people coming to her via a website. It's all referral based. So there's definitely a notion of having a strict number of images. It's a good heuristic for people, but it's certainly not the be all end all. Everyone can operate a little differently.
Mm, dig it. Okay, so how do I help? What's next?
you know, the critique today was certainly very helpful. Definitely some thoughts about the images themselves and the posing that obviously I didn't think of at the time. So now it's things that I can add to the toolbox, and with the next shoot, they'll be like, okay, wait a minute, Jessica
Mm.
mentioned to keep in
I
mind, and I think that's going to help.
I
Otherwise,
think I think with you imposing, you're like 80% of the way there in every shot. I see it. You just don't take it far enough. So I think for you, it's going to be one of those things where you're going to see it and feel like it's a little bit exaggerated. But, it's the kind of thing that, like, the one of her with the fabric behind her, you can do that one if you feel like that's where it is. But just play with it. Like, take 5 frames and have her really arch and have her keep going until she falls down,
oh,
and can't keep her balance.
I pushed her to the abusing point.
Good.
She could not bend anymore, so that's as much as I could get out of her. But yeah,
Good.
I had actually wanted more, but that was just the physical limits of the human body. Uh,
Mm,
having My family has crazy flexible joints, and I was a dancer, so what I think the human body should do apparently is not what most people actually find a
yeah.
human body can do. So there's yeah, a little bit of that comes up in every session. Because I'm like, oh, well,
Okay.
just arch like this and stretch your arm here, and people just look at me like I'm a freak. Actually, should be in a circus or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, that's true. Okay, so here's what I'd like to see from you. Keep moving on your levels and just revisit them and make sure everything that we built for your Sphere 1 is still relevant. If it's not, let's amend it. But by the time you come to level 19, I want to see a full collection. Is that too much to ask? How about 10 images? Can you bring me 10 cohesive images that fit together as a series?
I think that might take a little while.
What
Just
else are you doing? They haven't unrolled level 2 or Sphere 2 yet. You got nothing but time.
I've got nothing but time. That's if
Yeah.
this were my only job, yes, I would have nothing but time. It's also just an issue of scheduling with people to come in for the shoots. Everyone is so busy, and getting, I guess, first of all, planning 10 shoots that were cohesive.
It doesn't have to necessarily be 10 shoots. It just has to be
Well,
10
yeah, that's
images.
that's a fair point. Um, so if that's what you want to see, that's what'll happen. But I don't know how quick it'll be.
That's
As as it
I'm not
stands,
focused on speed. Lots of people go nowhere fast.
well, I don't know. I'm looking at Trey saying that spheres 0 and 1 should take about 3 to 6 months, and we're
Don't
getting
listen
almost
to
to a
him.
year here.
Yeah,
So
don't
a
listen
little
to
bit of
him. He doesn't know what
underachieving.
he's talking about.
Um, so yeah, I think the
Um,
only level that I think might need some tweaking is level 15. 'Cause
okay.
I think the way you structured level 15 makes a lot of sense in the retail space, but I don't know, kind of moving solely into the fine art world, that it has as much impact there. So that one might need a little tweaking, but otherwise, everything else should be
Okay.
pretty good.
Do you feel like you could go in and translate it into what would be viable for the gallery and fine art space? Can you just amend it?
Yeah, I think that there's conceptual overlap that it
Okay.
could be applied. Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's the deal. I put in all the work I'm willing to on your Sphere 1. So, but at any time, if any of you feel like one of the levels doesn't apply or you start finding different directions that you want to go, and I'm totally fine with that, but then it is your job to figure out what would benefit you more than the assignment that we had originally agreed on. So you can at any time go, JLark, your level 15 sucks, and here's my alternative that I have assigned myself. And then I'll just initial off and go, that sounds good, go do that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, you passed with flying colors, and I'm really, really excited, and I want to see all your new work as you're doing it. Post lots of stuff.
Yeah, I've got one more that I've already shot, and I think one more shoot that I need to schedule, and two more that need to be worked out the details. So there's definitely a lot going on for someone who only has, part-time hours.
That's good. That's how you know that you hit your stride and that you want it. You're in the right place because I know how busy you are and how much you have been undergoing and how much you've been conquering to be able to do it. It's good to see.
Yeah.
You made
So
Mama Bird so proud. Okay. All right. Well, then I will level you up and I will see you again at level 19. Sound good?
okay. Sounds
All
good.
right. I'll talk to you then.